So it's like, okay, you get the diagnosis, but then what? How do you actually live this? How do you parent,
Right.
So to start off, I'm really curious about this whole idea of autism being a spectrum, because it seems like every parent I talk to has a slightly different experience.
It uses this example of a child who is super musically gifted, like incredibly so,
Ah.
but then really struggles in social situations, reading cues and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's saying, like, look, these things can coexist.
Right.
So it's really driving home the point that the same label of autism can look so different from one person to the next.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about like checking off boxes on a list,
Yeah. Right, exactly.
It's about understanding the individual child.
Yeah, for sure.
And the PSD classification.
Yeah, it's much more inclusive now, I think.
So what used to be seen as all these different conditions are now all kind of under this one umbrella.
It seems like it.
And I imagine that must have been a big change for a lot of families.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I think parents really get hung up on, and I hear this a lot, is this whole idea of what causes autism. Do you feel like, oh, did I do something wrong? Was there something I could have done differently?
Oh, yeah.
What do these sources have to say about that? What does contribute to autism?
Well, they point to genetics.
Okay.
It seems like family history plays a big role.
So if you have a family history of autism, the chances of having a child on the spectrum go up.
It seems that way, yeah.
And they're still researching it, obviously, but
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
genetics is like a major factor.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's say there is that family history, or maybe a parent is noticing some things about their child that seem a little different. What are some of the signs that this child might need further evaluation for autism?
Communication challenges,
Okay.
like if a child has trouble with eye contact,
Right.
or just understanding social cues,
Yeah.
and
That leads into another thing that the sources mention, which is,
repetitive behaviors.
yeah, like repeating phrases or actions.
Yeah, or having like a really strong attachment to routines and rituals.
Right.
The book used the phrase insistence on sameness, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and that could be tough for parents to deal with.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, my sister, she had to fight my nephew every morning because he insisted on wearing the same shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Even if it was dirty, it was a whole battle.
And that actually leads into another characteristic,
Okay.
which is difficulties with transitions.
Right.
So if their routines change, that can be really upsetting.
Yeah. Anything else parents should be looking out for?
Sensory sensitivities.
Okay.
So some kids with autism can be really sensitive to certain sounds or textures, smells, sights. The pasted text gives this example of a child who hates the sound of a vacuum cleaner.
I can relate to that,
Yeah.
but I can't imagine how tough it must be to just like be in the world
Right.
and be bombarded with all this sensory input
Right.
when you have those sensitivities.
It makes everyday life a challenge for sure.
Yeah, so these are all really important things to look out for. But just because a kid shows some of these signs,
Doesn't mean they're autistic.
it doesn't mean they automatically have autism.
Exactly.
Because the sources really stress that these are just like potential red flags that warrant further evaluation by a doctor, right?
Yes, by a healthcare professional.
By a healthcare professional. Okay. So then what are the major red flags? Like the ones that would really signal, okay, we need to go get a professional assessment.
Well, the pasted text actually lists a bunch.
Okay, good.
So things like lack of eye contact,
Yeah.
delayed speech, or no talking at all,
Okay.
repetitive behaviors,
Yeah.
strong reactions to changes in routine.
Right, right. And I think they said early intervention is really important.
They emphasize that a lot, yeah.
So the earlier you can get a diagnosis, the sooner you can access support and therapies. Okay, that makes sense. Speaking of diagnosis, what does that process usually look like? Is it as simple as just, going to the pediatrician and getting a diagnosis, or is it more complicated?
Usually it's much more comprehensive.
Okay.
It often involves a whole team of professionals,
Like who?
like psychologists, speech therapists, occupational therapists.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes even more specialists.
So it's a real team effort.
Yeah, it needs to be.
Okay.
And the evaluation process is really thorough.
Yeah.
It often includes interviews with the parents and caregivers, observations of the child in different settings, and then also standardized tests.
Right, like they really want to get a full picture of the child.
For sure.
The pasted text actually talks about how important it is for parents to give really detailed information about their child's behavior during these evaluations. Do you think that's because, the parents know their kids the best?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
And so their insights are crucial for getting that accurate diagnosis.
Sure.
I can imagine, though, that this whole process, going through all these evaluations, waiting for a diagnosis, that must be incredibly stressful for families.
It is. It is. Both sources acknowledge that it can take a toll emotionally,
Right.
and they encourage people to seek support from friends, family, maybe autism support groups.
Yeah, because you don't have to go through it alone.
Exactly.
So you get the diagnosis. What do the sources say about the emotional impact of that moment, of actually receiving that diagnosis? Like, what kind of feelings do parents usually go through?
They talk about a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
They talk about shock, denial, grief, even guilt.
It must feel like your whole world is shifting.
Yeah, it can be really disorienting.
And they say all those feelings are totally normal.
Oh, absolutely.
It's okay to grieve. Like, the expectations that you had for your child's development
Yeah, you have to kind of let go of the old expectations.
and embrace this new reality.
Right.
And that's where the coping strategies come in, right?
Yeah, so things like learning more about autism,
Okay.
connecting with other parents who've been through the same thing.
Yeah, that shared experience,
Yeah.
that can be so powerful.
And then also really focusing on your child's unique strengths and abilities.
So instead of dwelling on the limitations, you're shifting to, like, what are the possibilities?
All right, exactly. I
Uh,
love that.
That autism is just one part of their child's identity.
It doesn't define them.
Exactly.
It's just one piece of who they are. And I think that's important to remember.
Really important.
And then they also talk about self-care for parents,
Yeah, that's huge.
which is so important because it's easy to get so caught up in caring for your child that you forget to take care of yourself.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly. The book actually used that analogy, putting on your own oxygen mask first.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
So, taking care of yourself, physically, emotionally, that's all part of being the best parent you can be.
It is.
Look, lots of therapies and strategies that can make a difference.
Yeah, a huge difference.
So it's not about erasing the autism, it's about learning to live with it
Yeah, and thriving.
and finding ways to thrive, yeah.
And there are lots of different approaches.
Okay.
They mention speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy, play therapy.
Wow, so many options.
So many.
It's about finding what works best for each child.
Yeah, and the pasted text actually cautions parents against falling for those miracle cures.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those.
Yeah,
It's easy to get desperate and try anything.
right.
So it's about sticking to the evidence-based approaches.
The proven ones.
Yeah, doing your research, talking to professionals, figuring out what's best for your child and your family.
And the book suggests kind of a try and see approach.
Okay, so
Like introduce one new treatment at a time,
okay,
see how it goes, and then adjust from there.
be really intentional about it.
Yeah, don't just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Right, exactly.
And they also talk about some alternative or complementary therapies.
Like what?
Like natural remedies, dietary modifications, and sensory integration techniques.
So like the gluten-free, dairy-free.
Yeah, they talk about all that.
Okay.
But they say to approach those with caution.
Right, of course.
And to always consult with your doctor.
Yeah, your healthcare provider.
Before you make any big changes.
Because what works for one kid might not work for another.
Right.
You don't want to accidentally do more harm than good.
Exactly.
So it seems like the sources are really saying that parents should be actively involved in their child's therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Not just like drop them off at therapy and pick them up later.
Right. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
The pasted text even says, the more parents understand about the therapies and strategies being used, the more effectively they can support their child's progress.
So parents working alongside the therapist, really understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's that teamwork again.
Exactly.
And that teamwork goes beyond just the therapy room, right?
Yeah.
They talk about how important it is for parents to become advocates
Oh, huge.
for their child's needs in every area of life.
Yeah, like at school.
Yeah, at school.
With other family members.
Right, people who might not understand.
It's about being their voice.
Yeah,
Making sure they have access to the support they need.
to succeed.
Exactly.
So advocating for inclusion, breaking down those barriers,
Absolutely.
that's powerful.
It really is.
And it seems like that's the core message of these sources.
Yeah,
Knowledge is power, support is essential, love is the guiding force.
I think so.
And with those tools, families can really embrace this journey of autism
With hope.
with hope and resilience and focus on the possibilities.
Yeah, it's about shifting that mindset from limitations to possibilities. Because every child, regardless of diagnosis, has the potential to thrive
Absolutely.
and make their mark on the world.
It's like you said before, finding those sparks of joy and just fanning those flames.
Yeah, I like that.
And sometimes it's the kids who face the biggest challenges who teach us the most profound lessons.
About love, acceptance, the human spirit. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
The impact of autism on the entire family.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because autism doesn't just affect the individual, it affects the whole family dynamic.
Right, it ripples outward.
And the pasted text is pretty honest about how much strain autism can put on relationships.
Especially marriages.
Yeah, it even mentioned higher divorce rates.
Which is a tough reality.
It is. It is. But they don't just leave us with that bleak outlook, right?
No.
What kind of advice do they offer for couples who are trying to navigate these challenges?
Well, they encourage couples to remember why they fell in love.
Oh.
To focus on the good stuff, even when it's chaotic.
Yeah.
And to try to make time for each other.
Even if it's just little moments here and there?
Exactly, because it's hard when you're juggling all the demands of caring for a child with autism.
For sure.
And that's why they also say it's so important to build a support network outside of your immediate family. Grandparents, siblings, friends, a babysitter, anyone who can give you a break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can recharge.
So you're not trying to do it all alone.
Exactly.
Asking for help is a good thing.
It is.
It's not a sign of weakness.
Not at all. Like being on the same page about how to handle things.
So both parents are supporting the child in a consistent way.
Yeah, and open communication, finding that common ground when it comes to parenting decisions, and not being afraid to get professional guidance if you need it.
Right. You're a team.
You are.
Both parents working together.
But what if it's just too much?
Yeah, they address that too.
They do.
They encourage couples to get professional help.
Like a family therapist.
Yeah, a family therapist or a marriage counselor.
Sometimes you just need that outside support
Absolutely.
to navigate all the complexities.
And there's no shame in that.
None at all.
It's a sign of commitment to your family.
Yeah, it's saying we're in this together.
So even though autism can add stress to a marriage, the pasted text does offer hope.
It does.
It's about being proactive.
Communicating openly, seeking support, and remembering to nurture your relationship
Yeah.
alongside caring for your child.
Because a strong, loving partnership can really be the foundation for this journey.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
And I think it leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, where we can explore more of those strategies and support.
To help families thrive.
Because even though autism presents all these challenges
It can also be an amazing journey.
of love, resilience, and growth.
Absolutely.
Hey, let's focus on what these kids are good at
Exactly.
and help them shine.
The pasted text talks about how individuals with autism often have these unique interests and strengths, maybe a fascination with numbers or a talent for art.
Right, or music.
Yeah, all sorts of things.
And encouraging those passions can be so powerful.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if you can tap into that natural enthusiasm, it can really motivate a child to learn.
Absolutely. It can become a source of confidence,
Yeah.
and even a way to connect with other people who share those passions.
It's like finding that spark and just like fanning the flames.
They're like that.
So let's say you've identified those strengths. Like, what are some practical ways that parents can create a supportive environment? What does the book suggest?
Well, it really highlights structure and predictability. Remember, kids with autism, they often thrive on routine.
Right, consistency. So having those clear schedules, like predictable transitions, that can really help reduce anxiety.
Yeah, and those meltdowns that can sometimes happen.
Oh, yeah.
And the book actually gives some examples of visual aids that can be helpful.
Like what?
Like visual schedules, timers, even picture cards for communication.
I've seen those visual schedules in classrooms. They seem to work pretty well.
They do. Yeah, it's all about providing that clear, concrete information so the child knows what to expect.
Right, right.
And then another thing is sensory accommodations.
Okay.
Creating a sensory-friendly environment can be huge.
Yeah, like dimming the lights, minimizing loud noises.
Exactly. Or providing calming sensory tools.
Like weighted blankets.
Yeah, weighted blankets, noise-canceling headphones.
It's about understanding those sensory sensitivities and creating that sense of safety.
Minimizing that overwhelm.
Okay, so that's super helpful. Now, what about the actual therapeutic interventions? We talked about a few earlier, but are there any specific ones that the sources really emphasize? ABA, okay.
Applied behavior analysis.
I've heard of that, but I'm not really sure how it works.
It's basically about understanding the connection between a child's behavior and their environment.
So figuring out what triggers certain behaviors,
Yeah.
and then what you can do to encourage more positive ones.
Right, exactly. And the book gives this example
Okay.
of a child who would have tantrums every time his mom tried to leave for work.
Oh, wow.
And so they used ABA, the therapist, and the mom
Okay.
to create this visual schedule that showed the child what would happen.
Like a step-by-step.
Yeah, mom leaving, him having breakfast, then playing with his toys.
Okay.
And they even used a timer to show him how much time was left until mom came back.
Wow.
And over time, the tantrums decreased because he felt more in control.
That's amazing.
It's about, like, giving them the tools to manage their emotions.
Yeah, to understand what's happening.
Exactly.
So ABA is one approach. What are some of the other ones?
Well, speech therapy is often really important
Okay.
for those communication challenges.
Makes sense.
And then occupational therapy
Oh.
can help with things like motor skills, sensory processing, daily living activities.
To help them become more independent.
Right.
And then there's play therapy, which sounds fun.
Yeah, it's a way to work on social skills, emotional regulation.
I bet kids love that.
They do. It's all about finding the right combination of therapies,
Yeah, for each individual child.
And embrace this journey.
With hope.
Yeah, and focus on those unique possibilities.
Like understanding your child's unique needs.
Knowing their rights.
Being able to communicate those needs to others.
Yeah, whether it's at school,
At school.
with doctors,
with family.
anyone.
Yeah, whoever it is.
It's about being their voice.
Making sure they have the support to thrive in every area of life.
Exactly.
And it's not just about meeting those basic needs. It's about fighting for inclusion.
For acceptance.
Challenging those stereotypes.
Yeah.
Creating a world where kids with autism are celebrated for who they are.
Beautifully said.
It's about shifting that narrative.
From deficits to strength.
From limitations to possibilities.
Yeah.
To neurodiversity.
And that's a message for everyone, not just parents.
I completely agree.
It's a message for society.
The more we understand,
The better.
the more we can create a world that embraces those differences.
Where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Exactly.
To contribute their unique gifts.
The journey of autism parenting is ongoing.
It's always evolving.
And it's filled with challenges.
But also incredible moments.
Of connection.
Of joy.
Of growth.
And remember, you're not alone.
There's a whole community out there.
Of parents.
Of professionals.
Advocates.
Ready to support you.
Every step of the way.
So keep learning.
Keep asking questions.
Keep advocating.
And keep loving your child for exactly who they are.
Because in their unique perspective.
In their challenges.
In their triumphs.
There's a world of beauty.
And resilience.
And boundless possibility.
That's the heart of autism parenting.
Seeing the world through a different lens.
Discovering the extraordinary within the ordinary. So, as we close this deep dive,
we leave you with encouragement.
With a sense of community.
And the reminder that even amidst the challenges,
there's beauty.
Resilience.
And a whole lot of love to be found in the world of autism.
That's a message worth holding on to.
It really is.